Yes, ma'am.
Today, I'm teaching you present perfect. Now, when do we use present perfect? Any idea? Do you have any idea when we are going to use present perfect?
When something is over and we are talking about present.
When something is over
Just
and you're
over.
talking about that. That can also be past tense.
Past means just over.
Past means just over.
Just over.
No, it cannot be like that. No, present perfect. Anyone else? Can you please give me an idea?
Present perfect. We use present perfect when we want to speak about something that has just happened
Okay,
and result is not yet known.
okay,
Past is something that has happened some time back or a few years back, a few minutes back.
fine. I think you have given a correct answer for that. So something has happened just now and the end result is not known. In fact, it has the continuation to the present. Now, for example, when do you use? Now, which sort of verb do you use? Now, if you open your books, you will come across three groups in that. One is infinitive, one is infinitive, the other is past simple, and the other is past participle. There are three forms. Did you come across in your 240 page? Right? So what is that? We use the present tense for the first one, we use it for the present tense, and the second for simple present, the second one for the simple past, and the third one for the perfect tense. Now, for example, if I have to take the word write, wrote, written. Let me keep this as V1 or the present, V2 or the past, and V3 or the past participle. Past participle is half verb and half adjective. And this is used in the perfect tense of the present, the past, and the future. How do we do that? We'll work on it today. Now, for example, if I want to make a sentence with this, how will I be doing? Let me keep one more thing that you need to understand over here. When I'm dealing with this, there are certain rules applied to that before I use this verb form. And when I'm using this, I can directly use this. But when I'm using this, I need to use another verb form before I take this. Now, let's work on this first. How do we write this? For example, I write a letter, and when it is a third person, for example, Gunjan, let's make it she. So she, what happens to the word write?
Right.
She writes a letter. A letter. So I have used it in this form by saying, because it's a third person, I'm going to put S to that, and then we're going to make a sentence. So I write a letter, she writes a letter, or Gunjan writes a letter. You write a letter, we write a letter, they write a letter, she writes a letter, he writes a letter, it writes a letter. Okay, let's keep it as the computer. The computer writes a letter. Clear? Now let's go into this. Suppose I want to use this. I wrote a letter. Okay, you wrote a letter, we wrote a letter, she wrote a letter. For the third person also, we are using wrote. Clear? She wrote a letter, he wrote a letter, it wrote a letter. For everything we are using this. There is no change as such. But when we are dealing with this, it is necessary that we need to use something apart from this. We can't directly use it like this. We cannot put it as subject plus verb plus object. We just cannot do that. We need to add something else before that. And this is used for a situation where the work has just taken place or the work has just been done and the end result is not known. Clear? Now, let's take this. Before I use the verb, the written, I have to use one thing I have told you. Now let us go into this. Now see, for example, I, we, you, they, have, he, she, it, has. Okay? Now when I am using this, I need to have these two depending on the subject. Now for example, I have written a letter. I have written a letter. And you people, I have written a letter to the officer complaining about the water supply. Right? I have written a letter to the officer complaining about the water supply. And you people are actually waiting. Huh? What happened? What happened? Did you get a reply? Did they speak about it? Did they say anything? You're waiting. The end result is not known. Yeah. Then I say, I have written a letter. I am waiting for a reply. Because the end result is not known. I am waiting for that. Okay? So, I have written a letter and the result is going to be in the present. Therefore, it is called the present perfect. Suppose I want to use the third person. She has written a letter. She is waiting for a reply. Very clear? I have spoken about present perfect. I hope you have all understood what I explained. Got the sentence? Is it clear? Difficult? Understood? So, before we use the third form, it is necessary we have to use this before, depending on your subject. If it's a plural form, we use have. If it is a singular form, we use has. That's how it is. Any questions regarding this, please?
You said the end result is not known.
Okay.
So, does it mean that when we use past participle, something is incomplete?
Yes, it is incomplete. We are actually waiting for the result. You have just finished the action. And the end result is not known. And you're waiting for the result. It is still continuing in the present.
So we cannot use a present perfect and stop the paragraph.
No, you cannot.
Okay.
Because there is a continuation to that. That is why the perfect sentence, and one more thing that you people have to understand, Britishers usually use the perfect sentences, whereas the Americans use the simple sentences. Now, I wrote a letter is what the American says, whereas the Britisher says, I have written a letter.